Karen called the cops on my 14-year-old son for sitting suspiciously on our front steps. But what she didn't know is that this time, the police had had enough of her. Stick around, because the ending is public, legal, and so satisfying. And if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, drop a comment with your country. We shout out viewers from around the world in every upload. We moved to Willow Ridge for peace. For the kind of neighborhood where people wave when they mow their lawns and kids ride bikes without checking over their shoulders. After everything we'd been through, a chaotic city, 3 break-ins, and me losing my job during the downturn, this little cul-de-sac felt like a reset button. My son Jordan, 14, was the one I worried about most. Quiet kid, smart, sensitive. He'd been struggling with anxiety since the break-ins, and we were finally getting him to smile again. Then came Karen. Blonde bob, clipboard, HOA badge she wore like it was federal authority. This first week she knocked on our door about trash bins left out for more than 2 hours. The next week, it was about basketball hoops being visible from the street. My wife handled it calmly. I tried to, too, but I had a feeling she wasn't done. She didn't like that we didn't fit in, or biracial, which I only mentioned because of how often she brought up the neighborhood aesthetic and old values. Still, I didn't want to believe she was racist, just overly involved. Until she started watching my son. Jordan liked to sit on the steps after school, AirPods in, sketchbook open, just decompressing, but Karen walked by every afternoon and stared. Didn't smile, didn't wave, just glared. Then came the day I'll never forget. I was finishing up work when I saw red and blue lights flash across our living room. I ran outside and saw 2 officers, one talking to my son who was visibly shaken, the other scanning our house. "Sir, your son was reported as loitering," one said. I laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. "He lives here," I said. "This is our porch." Officer looked uncomfortable, then said something that changed everything. We figured. We've had ... other calls from the same neighbor. We're obligated to respond, but don't worry, we know her. I asked what they meant, and the cop lowered his voice and said, "You'd be surprised how often she calls over nothing." I didn't let it go. That night, I filed a report with the HOA board. No apology from Karen. In fact, the next morning she doubled down. Sent an email to the board titled, "Concerned about suspicious behavior." She attached a photo of my son sitting on our steps. That was the moment I stopped being polite. I began collecting every incident, every ridiculous email, every comment made in passing. I talked to our other neighbors. Turns out, she'd called 911 on a family for grilling too late, another for leaving a garden hose out, and even tried to write a citation for chalk drawings on a sidewalk. The cops were tired of her. We were too. I wasn't about to let her get away with traumatizing my son. I reached out to a civil rights attorney, not because I wanted to sue, not yet, but because I wanted to know what our rights were. I explained that this HOA president had falsely called the police on my child, spread photos of him in the neighborhood group chat, and refused to apologize even when proven wrong. The lawyer was calm and precise. "What she's doing," he said, "can qualify as harassment and potentially defamation if she's circulating photos and claims that imply criminal behavior." That's all I needed to hear. I wrote a formal letter of complaint and sent it to the HOA, with copies to every board member and our attorney. In it, I laid out every incident, with timestamps, photos, audio recordings from our doorbell cam, and the police reports. I wasn't the only one. One by one, neighbors began adding their own stories. Karen had made enemies of almost everyone, but they were afraid to speak up, until now. The tipping point came when a family with a 5-year-old revealed that Karen had called CPS because their toddler had been playing in a splash pool without supervision. The CPS visit traumatized the parents, who broke down crying in front of the board. That night, I knew the board couldn't ignore her anymore. At the next HOA meeting, which I recorded, Karen showed up as if nothing was wrong, clipboard in hand, smile frozen on her face. But the president of the board stood up and announced they were reviewing a petition to remove her from the HOA entirely due to a pattern of harassment, misuse of authority, and harmful behavior toward residents. Her smile broke. She tried to defend herself, called it neighborhood pride, said she was just concerned. But the testimonies were too powerful. Jordan spoke last. My quiet son, hands shaking, voice cracking, told the room how he felt scared in his own home. Didn't know sitting on my porch could get me arrested, he said. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, except Karen's. In the weeks that followed, she was removed from the board, warned by police that further false calls could lead to charges, and hit with a civil harassment notice. But we didn't stop there. We worked with our lawyer to establish a community harassment accountability policy. Basically, a neighborhood bill of rights to protect residents from targeting and intimidation. It passed. Today, Jordan sits on the porch like he used to. Headphones in, sketching, peaceful. Karen still lives down the street, but now she's the one who lowers her head when we pass by, where she thought she could control everyone with fear, but she forgot that neighbors talk. Good people stand up when enough is enough. She tried to call 911 on a child. In the end, she only called attention to her own cruelty. And now everyone knows her name, not as the HOA queen, but as the neighbor who crossed the line and lost.